Hey guys, it's Miss Jenkins. I am recording our PowerPoint so that if you don't go to class, you'll have it. And here we go. We are covering Unit 13 this week. We are almost to the finish line, guys. We have 14 and 15, and then we are done. We are almost there. One more week, guys. Feel free to work ahead. That is absolutely okay. The last week you have 2 chapters together, so I would absolutely suggest working ahead. All right, here we go. We are doing the connected mind, social psychology this week. So here's your vocab. I forgot to update the key people. I'm so sorry. I forgot to do that. So I'll update that before class tomorrow, although I doubt much of it will change. All right, the connected mind, social psychology. So we're talking all about social issues today. So our book, this is a little out of order. It's not exactly as the book goes, but it's close enough for you to be able to follow the bigger concepts. So attribution theory states the inferences that people draw about their causes of events, others' behavior, and their own behavior. Okay. Disposition attribution is we attribute to a person's behavior to an internal state, like a personality or ability. Situational attribution is attributing a person's behavior to their external state, like their stress, abuse, hardship, wealth, all of those kinds of things. Let me turn a light on here. I'm sorry, I'm a little dark for you guys. There we go. For function, people like to explain and understand behavior and the events and the impact of their lives. And then attributions are made when an event is unusual and personal. So we have our little funny piece here. You can't hardly read it. Goodness, you really can't hardly read that. Okay, so I had to blow that up because I couldn't read it. It says, so if it's good, it's Mr. Coffee. If it's bad, it's me. And that's basically the funny way of saying something. Normally we say it the other way around, you know. If it's good, of course I did it. And if it's bad, obviously somebody else did it. So this is just kind of a little funny play on that. All right, so we have the covariation model of attribution. This is looking specifically at kind of how everything plays out. I'm sorry, I'm looking on another screen. Hold on one second. There we go. How things play out. Basically, it says Ira smiles a lot on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons. So the covariant would be high that Ira, the external variant would be that Ira always smiles on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons. That's consistency. The distinctiveness would be that he only smiles after his Monday, Wednesday, and Friday exercise class. Or the consensus that exercise makes everyone I know happy, therefore the external attribution is something about exercises causes Ira to smile. Okay, the same thing can be said about internal attribution. So high would be Ira always smiles on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday afternoons. Low would be Ira smiles a lot with or without exercise for distinctiveness. And consensus, low would be exercise rarely makes the people I know happy. So the internal attribution would be Ira's basically a happy guy. Okay, that's kind of how you can play that out. Of course, your book has more information on this. Feel free to look. Here's an example of attribution. Negative behavior. So you see the person in front of you weaving. So there's 2 ways that you can look at that, either situational attribution or dispositional attribution. So situational attribution would be that you're thinking maybe the driver's ill, maybe there's something wrong with the driver. So your reaction would be to be cautious and kind of give them a wide berth. Now, if you were dispositionally attributed, you would think, man, that driver's just crazy. Maybe they drank too much. And then what you might do, your unfavorable reaction would be to speed up, race past them, giving them a dirty look, road rage, basically. Okay, that's kind of the dispositional attribution. All right, so bias in attribution, we have fundamental attribution errors, or FAE. That states that observers bias in favor of internal attribution in explaining others' behavior instead of external. Okay, internal instead of external. So an example of that would be that somebody else drops out of college because they couldn't handle the pressure. That would be an internal, versus you may ignore the tuition went up and your family can't afford it. Okay, that's the difference between internal and external. Defensive attribution would be a tendency to blame the victim for their misfortune so that they feel that they're being victimized. Self-serving bias would be a tendency to attribute one's success to dispositional factors and one's failures to situational. In-group bias would be a tendency to favor your own group over another group. Here's a little comic about that. So, why are you always so anxious to criticize me? And Lucy says, I just think I have a knack for seeing other people's faults. And then I can't remember his name. I was never a really big Snoopy fan, so I'm sorry. I can't remember the little dirty kid's name, the one with the blanket. He says, what about your own faults? And Lucy says, I have a knack for overlooking them. So basically she's saying, I can point yours out, but I'm not going to pay attention to my own. So that is a lot of people that I know. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but that's a real thing. All right, attitudes and attitude formation. We have components of attitude. We have cognitive, what you believe, affective, how you feel it, behavioral, what you're willing to do about it. So when you observe and respond to the world around you, it's never really without influence of our attitude, even if we don't realize it. Advertisers spend millions because they know that attitude can be shaped and changed to their belief. Okay. An example of this would be the difference between an Apple and a Mac. I mean, an Apple and a PC. So if you ask an Apple user about why they don't use a PC, I mean, they get seriously angry about it because Apple is a whole lifestyle thing. You know, you have to have the phone and you have to have the computer and you have to have this and that. And I mean, Apple's a whole thing. And PCs, people that have PCs are usually just like, you know, it's just a computer. Or you're like me and Apple really frustrates you and you are glad that you do not use an Apple. My daughter has an Apple phone, and most of the time when I have to do anything on it, I want to throw it through a wall because I get so irritated. But that's one of those attitude and, formations where society has kind of drilled it into people that, you need to have one or the other. You also have another definition for positive, negative, and mixed feelings based on your beliefs or predispositions. Basically responding in a particular way to an object, a person, or an event. Again, Apple versus PC. Attitudes can affect your actions. So a video game including individuals holding guns or other objects has often been used to examine the effect of race and ethnicity on decisions to shoot. Civilians and police officers both make faster decisions to shoot an armed person if the person is African American and not to shoot an unarmed white target. So in these pictures, you have people holding and not holding guns. Okay. The likelihood of the person being shot really depends on your predisposition. Right? And a lot of times, regardless of what race you are, you're going to have a tendency, this shows that there is a tendency to shoot a black person, whether they are armed or not armed. However, if you see a white person, even holding a gun, they're less likely to be shot. Okay, that's just a fact, and that's a psychological predisposition that people have that's just kind of ingrained in them, and they just don't even realize it. All right, this is not, again, personal opinion. It's just looking at, some facts. So behaviors in groups. The bystander effect shows that you're less likely to help others when in a group and than when alone. So you're less likely to help somebody if you are by yourself than if you're in a group. Social loafing is where individuals produce less work, reduced efforts, and efficiency when working in groups rather than by themselves. So they're like, hey, I got a whole group. I don't have to work as hard. Diffusion of responsibility helps explain both of those. So, more people, less work, that kind of is how the brain works. Decision-making, group polarization. So when a group decision leads to a more polarized point of view by the group. Group thinking is when people feel pressure to conform to the group and stop critical thinking to avoid dissension. So you don't want to be that one person that's standing up saying, no, this isn't right. You don't want, 9 other people on the jury to be mad at you because you don't agree with them. So when we're talking about things like this, it just depends on what type of group you're in as to whether you're going to tend to go with the group or go against the group, even countermand to what your mind is going to tell you. So this is kind of how group polarization works. So before group discussion, the group average is kind of in the middle. And then after a group discussion, they are going to pretty much all be in the same area. That's when views are held by the individual. Now, views held by the individual group members, again, that's going to be leaning more towards the positive. And then by the end of it, they're going to literally all be on the same side. So regardless of which one they are, if it's individual or group, they're going to tend to go together once they are grouped together. All right, cognitive dissonance and social facilitation. This stresses me out just seeing it because I'm not a math person. So cognitive dissonance theory states that when we act in a way not consistent with our beliefs, we feel tension, and when we revise our beliefs to align with our behavior. Okay, so you get stressed out if you act out of character, but then you rationalize it in your mind and you readjust your belief system to match what you actually did. So, for instance, asked to do an hour of long, boring task, you're offered $1 or $20 to say it's fun. Okay. A larger payment leads to less dissonance because higher payments could account for lying. So $1 was not enough to justify lying, so people change their attitudes to their saying to enjoy the task. Okay. Basically, think about it this way. If you go into a store and you steal a candy bar, you know that's wrong, and you know you shouldn't do that. All right, so the way you rationalize it is, well, maybe it was just this once. I was really hungry. I didn't have the money. I had to do it. That's how you justify it in your mind to make it okay. Okay. We then have social facilitation, which is being watched while doing a task makes you do it better. Good grief. I don't know how that's true. It always stresses me out more when somebody's watching me. But think about it like doing math in front of a group of people. I mean, you can do it, but are you really going to want to do that? Especially if that's not your subject. Okay. Stereotype versus bias. This is a really touchy subject. It's talking about stereotyping somebody versus being biased about them. And that's two different things. So stereotyping somebody is grouping them, putting them into groups that maybe they would not have been in if you hadn't said anything. Okay. So an example of that is going to be this cartoon right here. And basically this cartoon says, with the white guy on the left and the African American on the right, the white guy says, I think so, man. And the black guy says, is this English 200? I guess it says, is this English 200? And the white guy says, I think so. So then the white guy says, man, I hate the first day of class. Everyone's looking at you, at your hair and clothes, and writes me off as a hippie. I'm not going to say the bad word in there, but marks me off as a hippie. And the African American student says, tell me about it. Try being a black man. And so they're just kind of looking at each other, and they're like, And then the white guy says, so, do you play football or what? Because a stereotype of African Americans are that they play football. That's something that people talk about that is not necessarily true. In this picture, this is Hurricane Katrina. And if you can read this really quickly, the African-American boy is quoted as looting a grocery store. That means stealing something. And the white girl who has bread is credited as finding. Okay. Even though they're both doing the same thing, which is stealing, one is quoted as looting and one is quoted as finding. All right, so that's a big difference. That's a bias. The person writing the article has a bias against African Americans as being ingrained that they're going to steal, they are going to take, while as obviously this young white girl is not going to do that. She's just trying to help her family. Okay, even though that may not be the situation. All right, so words are very, very specific when we're talking about things like this, because we don't want to put our personal bias into what we're talking about. So personal perception, that's the process of forming impressions of others. Impressions are influenced by your physical appearance. I can't talk today. Physical appearance. That's good-looking people are seen as intelligent, friendly, and confident. Your schemas, which are organized clusters of ideas about categories of social events and people, or just your first impression, your self-fulfilling prophecy or your primacy. Okay? Those are your personal perceptions. Then we have social influence. Okay? Social influence is our tendency to unconsciously mimic things around us. They use yawning in this as an example. And it's interesting because yawning is considered one of the hallmarks of a sociopath. Somebody that does not yawn when you yawn, doesn't have empathy, and is generally considered a sociopath. So that's one of the hallmarks of being able to determine, because yawning is, just looking at this makes me literally want to yawn. So that's one of those empathic tendencies. The chameleon effect is, again, mimicking people yawning, having a happy or sad mood based on them, dressing like your friends, mimicking, is your automatic mimicry is the ingredient in your empathizing with others. Okay. Altruism. Altruism is action designed to help others with no benefit to yourself. Okay, why are we altruistic? Well, we have the evolutionary perspective saying favor survives of genes. We have the egoistic model, which is motivated by anticipation's gain, or the empathy altruistic hypothesis saying that sometimes for selfish gains, other times truly selfless and motivated by concern for others. So basically it's helping somebody without you actually receiving anything in return. Okay? That's what altruism is. You doing it of your own free will for no benefit. We also have persuasion techniques. Basically this is, limited time offers, deals, everybody's buying, foot in the door in the face, lowballing, all those kinds of things that people use to try to get you to buy things, whether it is a salesperson or advertising. In the comic strip, it says, "Mom, can I set fire to my bed mattress?" He says, no, Calvin. He said, can I ride my tricycle on the roof? No, Calvin. Then can I have a cookie? No, Calvin. Dang it, she's on to me. So basically, he's just trying to get her to react, and she's just like, absolutely not. All right, results of attraction. Attraction, this is towards the end of the lesson, but attraction, that's kind of friendship. You have the attraction between two people that's not necessarily a romantic relationship. Examples of rules that you might have in friendship would be help when needed, trust and confide in others. You have romantic love, which is an intense feeling of attraction to another within an erotic context with future expectations. So basically, a romantic relationship or romantic love is with the expectation that there will be sexual intimacy at some point. Okay, that's where the difference between friendship and romance comes in. You have compassionate love, which is a strong and lasting attraction characterized by trust, caring, tolerance, and friendship. This is generally a mature love. This is not something that you see generally in younger people. Compassionate love tends to be more with the elderly, where it's more about trusting and caring than it is about sexual intimacy. Okay. Then you have the triangular theory of love, and we'll talk about that in the next one. Okay. Again, here's some attraction contributors to attraction. So you have proximity, how close you are to somebody, similarities, maybe some commonalities between people, reciprocity. Ooh, that's a lot of letters in there. The tendency to like those who like you. Physical attraction, obviously, you're pleasantly happy with the way somebody looks. Generally, that's one of the first things that draws people is just physical attraction. And then matching hypothesis. So equally attractive people date. Okay. And here's some pictures on the bottom. So here's the triangular conception of love. So you have liking at the top, you have empty love on the bottom right, and you have infatuation or passion alone on the bottom left. You really have to have a consummate love. You have to have all of those together. You have to have intimacy, passion, and commitment. For a romantic love, you generally only have intimacy and passion. For a compassionate love, you have intimacy and commitment. And for a flirtatious love, ooh, I've never heard that word before, but you have passion and commitment. Okay, so to have all of these together are different parts of a relationship. Generally, romantic love tends to decline as you get older, while compassionate love tends to increase across your lifetime. Again, compassionate love tends to be more with older people rather than younger. All right, this is our last slide for the day. So we have components of attraction. So attitude about makeup. So you can have a cognitive component. So animal testing of cosmetics is cruel. You can have an affective component or emotional feeling. I feel terrible when I wear makeup. Or you can even have a behavioral component, a predisposition to act. So I'll follow my beliefs and won't wear makeup. So any of those can influence your attitude towards somebody. So you have those three different definitions. All right, guys, that is it for this week. I do not have office hours this week because of a professional development, but I did want to let you guys know that you can call or text me and I will be available anytime. I do want to remind you guys the lock date for all assignments is April 25th at 8 a.m. You do not get an extension. That is it. All right, so make sure that you have everything turned in by that point. If you have questions, contact me. I will be happy to talk to you about any of it. You guys have a great day, and I will see you in class.